Howdy folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast, The Hunter's Brief, your weekly roundup for the most current stories from the world of wildlife, conservation, and public lands. It's the week of January 23rd, and I'm excited to introduce some variety to the show. In the coming weeks, you'll hear interviews from people who maybe aren't hunters, but have fascinating perspectives and things that are interesting worth noting for the sporting community. We'll have historical deep dives like we did last week into how policies and traditions came to be, and occasionally old school hunting yarn. Today's episode still features the latest news that you need to know, from Congress debating the boundary waters and Colorado's wolf reintroduction woes to stolen artwork and poaching busts. Stick around to hear why each story matters to hunters and conservationists alike. House votes to lift the boundary waters mining ban. In mid-January, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution that would overturn the Biden administration's 20-year moratorium on mining around Minnesota's Boundary Waters Canoe Area wilderness. The measure, which passed 214 to 208, would allow copper-nickel mining near the iconic wilderness if the Senate agrees. Supporters like Rep. Pete Stauber argue the nation needs domestic critical minerals and claim modern technology will prevent pollution, while critics such as Rep. Betty McCollum warned that sulfide ore copper mines invariably contaminate waters and threaten America's most visited wilderness. The vote heightens tension between resource extraction and recreation, with conservation groups noting that the boundary waters, pristine lakes supporting hunting, fishing, and paddling, as well as local economies tied to tourism. For hunters and anglers, opening the watershed to mining raises alarms about mercury and acid runoff, imperiling fish and game populations downstream. Whether the Senate takes up the resolution remains to be seen, but the controversy underscores how public lands management can swing with political winds. Just remember, sometimes the only thing more corrosive than mine waste is a heated Washington debate. Colorado halts wolf releases after new mortality and federal pressure. Colorado Parks and Wildlife announced that no wolves will be released in the winter of 2026 and disclosed that another reintroduced female wolf 2504, was found dead in early January. The agency has reintroduced 25 wolves since December of 2024, but nearly half of them, 11 animals, have died. CPW attributes the decision to mounting federal interference, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Director Brian Nesvik previously sent a cease and desist letter barring Colorado from importing Canadian wolves and later demanded a detailed account of all wolf management actions, threatening to revoke the state's 10J experimental population permit. Without additional releases, CPW says achieving a self-sustaining wolf population will be more difficult. Ranchers, meanwhile, welcome the pause after several livestock depredations. The latest death fuels debate over whether federal officials are undermining Colorado's voter-mandated reintroduction or rightly enforcing endangered species rules. For hunters, wolves are a symbol of restored wilderness, but also a potential competitor for elk and deer. At this rate, the only thing multiplying faster than wolves is the paperwork. More from Colorado, because I guess we're crazy over here. CPW staff has been threatened with death threats after mountain lions euthanized. After Colorado Parks and Wildlife euthanized 2 mountain lions suspected of fatally attacking hiker Kristen Marie Kovach on New Year's Day, staff and commissioners began receiving anonymous death threats. At a January 2026 commission meeting, Commissioner Dallas May acknowledged that CPW's tasks can't please everyone and noted that the agency remains on the defensive over hunting regulations and predator management. Acting Director Laura Cleland emphasized that lethal actions are only taken after careful deliberation, yet threats flowed in by phone and social media. Law enforcement officers are investigating, and commissioners also face pressure from activists ahead of the March vote on fur-bearer hunting regulations. Hunters worry that intimidation could sway commissioners away from science-based management, while animal rights advocates blame the agency for prioritizing human safety over wildlife. Like mountain lions themselves, public land managers sometimes stalk a narrow ridge between competing interests, and in this case, they're getting pounced on both sides. Bronze ram stolen from the KUIU headquarters. On New Year's Eve, thieves stole a life-size bronze statue of a bighorn ram from outdoor gear company KUIU's headquarters in Dixon, California. Surveillance footage shows the culprits cutting the 300-pound statue off its base, leaving and then returning with a dolly to haul it away. KUIU, known for lightweight hunting apparel, offered a $5,000 reward for information, and the sculptor Josh Toby lamented the loss, noting that the artwork represented the company's heritage. Police believe a second vehicle was involved and have executed search warrants based on the video. But as of mid-January, the statues remain missing. So for hunters, the heist resonates beyond its quirkiness. Bighorn sheep symbolize rugged mountain pursuits and conservation success stories funded by tag fees. Perhaps the thieves assumed lightweight gear meant easy lifting, but they'll find returning a stolen ram is no walk in the park. The Department of the Interior adopts a open unless closed public lands policy. On January 13th, Interior Secretary Doug Burgum issued Secretarial Order 3447, directing agencies like the Bureau of Land Management and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to treat most lands and waters as open to hunting and fishing unless managers justify closures. The order creates a default open framework where any closure must be legally mandated, tied to public safety or resource protection, and documented through a review process. Supporters, including the Boone and Crockett Club, say the policy removes bureaucratic barriers and improves coordination with states and tribes. Critics worry it could expand hunting in traditionally low-impact recreation areas and downplay non-consumptive uses. For hunters and anglers, the change could mean more access and more consistency across federal lands. For land managers, it shifts the burden from visitors asking, "Where can I hunt?" to agencies explaining why you can't. If only my local coffee shop adopted an open unless closed policy, I'd never miss my morning espresso. Hey hunters, have you ever had one of those stories, the ones that you didn't want to tell, the ones that end in failure? Yeah, I've been there. Actually, you know what? The culprit for me usually is bad optics, or worse, lack of using my optics at all. Picture this. I spot a trophy buck, or an antelope, or an elk, whatever it may be. My heart is racing, but the blurry view, or I just can't quite identify exactly what I'm looking at, it has me second guessing. Well, that's where Vortex Optics comes in. With crystal clear glass and rugged durability, Vortex gives you the confidence to take the shot. Don't let poor optics ruin your story. Make every moment count. Upgrade to Vortex and turn your hunting tales into triumphs. Visit vortexoptics.com today. Hey hunters, have you ever had one of those stories, the ones that you didn't want to tell, the ones that end in failure? Yeah, I've been there. Actually, you know what? The culprit for me usually is bad optics, or worse, lack of using my optics at all. Picture this. I spot a trophy buck, or an antelope, or an elk, whatever it may be. My heart is racing, but the blurry view, or I just can't quite identify exactly what I'm looking at, it has me second guessing. Well, that's where Vortex Optics comes in. With crystal clear glass and rugged durability, Vortex gives you the confidence to take the shot. Don't let poor optics ruin your story. Make every moment count. Upgrade to Vortex and turn your hunting tales into triumphs. Visit vortexoptics.com today. Missouri expands coyote hunting methods. The Missouri Department of Conservation reminded hunters that new regulations allow the use of artificial light, night vision, and thermal imaging to hunt coyotes from January 1st through September 30th. The rules, approved in fall 2025 and effective January 1st, 2026, extend night hunting tools to help coyote control population that impact livestock and game species. Hunters may not chase or take coyotes during daylight hours from April 1st until the start of turkey season, and other seasonal restrictions still apply. The agency urges hunters to consult the Wildlife Code for details and reminds them that pelts and carcasses may be possessed and sold year-round. For predator hunters, the extension offers more opportunity and modern technology to outsmart wary song dogs. Just remember, with great thermal power comes great responsibility. It wasn't intentional this week, guys, but we have a lot from Colorado. Active duty soldiers convicted in Colorado poaching case. Colorado wildlife officers concluded a 14-month investigation into a poaching spree on Fort Carson and nearby state lands, resulting in misdemeanor convictions for 2 active duty U.S. Army soldiers and a third accomplice. The case began in November 2024 when a hunter discovered a poached mule deer buck and doe. Investigators linked social media images and physical evidence to Sergeant Jacob Curtis Kaiser and Staff Sergeant Juan Salcedo. Search warrants uncovered more evidence, revealing the men had illegally killed 6 mule deer and trespassed onto state land. Kaiser faced 30 wildlife charges and received $19,005 in fines, 180 suspension points, and forfeit of his rifle. Salcedo paid $8,817 and received 65 points, while a third soldier, who disposed of meat, was fined $900. CPW noted that lifetime hunting bans are possible pending a suspension hearing and praised Fort Carson law enforcement officers and hunters who reported the crime. The case underscores how social media can both facilitate and solve wildlife crimes, and how poachers, like bad soldiers, leave too many footprints. Third man pleads guilty in Montana elk poaching ring. In Lewis and Clark County, Montana, a third suspect pleaded guilty to 4 charges connected to a string of elk poaching incidents that spanned multiple counties in 2022 and 2023. The Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation noted the natural resource crimes harm Montana outdoor heritage and encourage people to report poaching through state hotlines. The plea is part of a larger case involving at least 10 counts and several defendants. Investigators linked the group to illegal elk hunts or elk kills, across 2022 and 2023, leading to convictions and restitution orders. The case highlights cooperative law enforcement efforts and the persistent problem of opportunistic poaching, even in states with robust hunting seasons. For ethical hunters, it's a reminder that poachers aren't just breaking the law, they're stealing from everyone who values wildlife. You could say the criminals learned the hard way that bull elk aren't the only ones who bugle during the rut. USDA launches New World Screwworm Grand Challenge. On January 21st, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced a $100 million New World Screwworm Grand Challenge to spur innovation against the parasitic fly that devastates livestock and wildlife. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins called the investment a strategic step to protect America's food supply and ranching economy. The initiative invites proposals to enhance sterile fly production, develop novel traps and lures, create therapeutics, and bolster preparedness with a funding deadline of February 23rd. Screwworms, eradicated from the U.S. decades ago, remain a threat as a climate change and trade could facilitate their northward spread. Hunters and livestock producers alike have a stake, since outbreaks could decimate deer populations and domestic herds. It's a rare grand challenge where flies get headlines and hopefully an eviction notice. That wraps up the Hunter's Brief for the week of January 22nd, 2026. Remember that this show is evolving. Look forward to interviews with non-hunters offering fresh perspectives, historical deep dives, and how policies and traditions took shape, and the occasional retelling of a classic hunting adventure. In the meantime, stay informed about the issues that affect your public lands and wildlife. If you have any stories that you want us to cover, message us. You can get us up on our email, our website, and of course, social media. We respond to all of those. But please share this podcast with friends, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and tune in Monday for our storytelling segment. Until then, keep your ethics sharp, your aim true, and your sense of humor handy. Because in conservation world, the news can be heavy, but your heart doesn't have to be.